We'll move on to our next session. It's a very interesting topic, which is on the role of artificial intelligence and digitalization in COVID-19 pandemic. And we have with us Dr. Sandeep Kadu sir, who is professor and head of the Department of Forensic Medicine and Toxicology at Dr. VVP Foundation's Medical College in Ahmednagar. Sir has a vast teaching experience of almost 20 years, and he is member of the Board of Studies at MUHS. He is also a member of the Board of Studies at Dr. D.Y. Patil Vidyapeeth, Pune. He has numerous research publications and is also a resource person for MET, Methodology Workshop of MUHS Nashik. Thank you so much, sir, for taking your time out today and briefing us on this very interesting topic. I request you to share your screen, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the onset, I am very thankful to Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Nitin Karmalkar sir, Registrar Dr. K.D. Chavan sir, and my friend Dr. Ravindra Devkar sir for giving me opportunity on delivering session on role of digitalization and artificial intelligence. So COVID-19 has caused irreversible effect on the world. It also caused impact on healthcare and medical education. The pandemic has forced the healthcare providers and government around the world to accelerate the development of digitalization and artificial intelligence tools and skills. Artificial intelligence and digitalization is not only helpful in medical education, but it is also supportive to control, diagnosis, as well as treatment aspect of COVID-19. I have planned this session into three parts. First part, I am going to elaborate on the impact of the digitalization on health science education, that is about the virtual learning. In the second part, I am going to elaborate on telemedicine and role of artificial intelligence in monitoring, controlling, and treatment, as well as prevention of COVID-19, that is the artificial intelligence importance on this topic. So learning objective of today's my session is evaluate the role of digitalization in health science education. Second is understand the benefits and critical issues related to virtual learning, telemedicine, and artificial intelligence. Analyze the role of artificial intelligence in COVID-19 pandemic control and treatment. So first, COVID-19 pandemic has made everyone feel the need to adapt the virtual teaching learning methodology to serve the dual purpose, that is, continuation of the education while discontinuation of the chain of transmission of the virus to a number of people. So last year, when lockdown was there, then at that time, we are not well conversant with all these online platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or Google Meet. But after 1 year, we all are conversant with this virtual learning platform. This virtual learning is also called as a web-based learning, online learning, distributed learning, computer assisted instruction, and the web-based learning. So what is the definition of the virtual learning? Well, virtual learning is a learning experience that is enhanced through utilizing computers and or the internet both outside and inside the educational organization. Most commonly, the instructions takes place in an online environment. Virtual learning is also known as a digital learning or e-learning. So, students, mere telling is not teaching, as well as mere listening is not learning. Then what is the proper definition of the teaching and learning? So learning is transformation of information into knowledge. So there are much more information is present on Google and all this, but we don't remember all this information. When that information is get converted or transformed into the knowledge, and for this transformation of information to knowledge, it is called as a learning. The learning is relatively permanent change in behavior resulting from reinforced practice. So there is relatively permanent change in a behavior. How it happens? It happens from the reinforced practice. And another definition of the learning is modification of learner's way for thinking, feeling, and doing. This thinking, feeling, and doing are nothing but the altered domains. Thinking is cognitive domain, feeling is affective domain, and doing is a psychomotor domain. So, learning causes the learner's modification in all these three domains. That is thinking, feeling, and doing. That is cognitive, affective, and the psychomotor. Then what is teaching? Teaching is a process which facilitates the learning, and it encourages learners to think, feel, and do. So with the teaching, learner encourages for the thinking, feeling, or doing what they learn. So that's the definition of the teaching and learning. So with a virtual learning, all these three domains is really achieved or not? So that's the question. What are the different interventions of the virtual learning? These are not non-network computer based like pen drives and CDs. The learning material is there, and afterwards the student learned it. Then internet and local area, that the same thing that you all are watching on YouTube, that is the synchronous type of the way. And afterwards, when it gets uploaded, after that, after 1 week or as per your pace, when you are watching, that is called as unsynchronous. So there are different internet-based systems are there, like learning management system, Moodle, Blackboard. So all these are the learning platforms. The psychomotor skill trainer. So skill labs are there, and student learns the psychomotor type of the domain in a skill lab. And they get confidence before they actually do the procedure on a patient. Then there are virtual reality environment. These are the improved type of the skill lab, or the sophisticated type of the skill lab, that the student get an environment that is more like that of the real environment. For example, that the accident is there, patient becomes serious, then that patient is shifted to the ICU, and you have to give the endotracheal intubation. Like that environment is there, but it is a virtual environment, and in that environment the student learn. Then there are digital game-based learning. Many times in a virtual learning, that the student gets the board. So for the students' attention, some digital game-based learning like Kahoot or Slido, these are the different softwares are there. So these are the different virtual learning tools like YouTube. Now you are watching in a YouTube, Google Docs, Prezi, CD-ROM, SlideShare, and so on. So what are the advantages of the virtual learning? Virtual learning advantage is the flexibility and ease of the access. It's that the learner can learn at his own time pace. Cosmopolitan in nature. Like this, I am delivering the lecture, and this lecture is on YouTube. The student who is in a rural area can watch, as well as urban area, or the student outside the country also can watch. Time saving. Yes, is the self-explanatory. If this program is at Nashik or Mumbai, I have to travel and all these things. So it's the time saving. Stopgap management means what? In a skill lab, the student first learn, get a confidence about that procedure. After he become a confident that he can do that procedure, then if he does that procedure on a patient, then he does without any mistake. So that the stopgap arrangement that can be achieved by the virtual learning. It also follows adult learning principle. Adults are very choosy. They don't listen uh, all the things. Those things which are important to them, they only learn that. So this virtual learning platform follows the adult learning principle. Also, the uniformity of the content. So these all are the advantages of the virtual learning. Then what are the disadvantages of the virtual learning? Disadvantage of the virtual learning, yes, connectivity issue. The connectivity is poor at a rural area, also in urban area. If there is congestion in internet, then the connectivity issue is there. Financial issues. So for the installing all these virtual learning platform, it requires financial assistance. Security and safety personal information, because many times this security is there, and previously in last year when the Zoom app was there, government has to give the circular, release the circular that use Zoom app with a caution. Then for this virtual learning, technical support is also needed. The most important, as a teacher, I feel the most disadvantage is the lack of face-to-face interaction. Also the emotional connect, social interaction, teamwork, all these are not present in a virtual learning platform. And as a doctor, he has to give the treatment, he has to learn some practical as well as clinical skill, and it's not possible in a virtual learning platform. I have done one survey. In that survey, more than 824 students has been participated all over India, and there was one of my question on a Google form that which teaching learning method you will prefer, either it is traditional or virtual. And to my surprise, my students has given answer that 95% students prefer traditional learning. And the last disadvantage of the virtual learning is unable to assess if really they are listening or not, and students comprehension level. So these are the disadvantage of the virtual learning. Though these all are virtual learning, but remember that virtual learning has helped us in this COVID-19 pandemic, and it has continued the education, though it is up to the cognitive level, not up to the psychomotor and that of the affective level, but still virtual learning has its own importance, and it has also followed the COVID pandemic guidelines, that is the uh, continuation of the education. Second part is the telemedicine. Telemedicine is the natural evolution of the care in a digital world. It has historical background in the 20th century when ECG was transmitted over telephone lines. In India, ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, was a pioneer of a telemedicine. And in 2001, linking Chennai's Apollo Hospital with Apollo Rural Hospital of Aragonda village in a Chittoor district of the Andhra Pradesh was done. What are the tools of the telemedicine? These are telephonic, video calls, or devices connected with LAN, WAN, internet, mobile or landline chat, WhatsApp chat, Facebook Messenger. There are many mobile apps, Skype, email, fax, etc. are the tools of the telemedicine. But whatever the conversation between patient and doctor is there, maintain the digital documentation. It's very important. What are the benefits of the telemedicine in COVID-19 pandemic? So, this chronic diseases treatment, chronic diseases require follow-up visit to the doctor. But there is a risk of getting infection. That's why telemedicine has helped in these cases like bronchial asthma, hypertension, diabetes mellitus, and they can contact with a doctor via telemedicine and get the treatment. Second most important, that this COVID-19 has in Shetty sir's lecture that he said that fear is in all persons' mind. So there must be a psychological support. And this psychological support can be given by a doctor to the patient through the telemedicine. It also reduces burden on a tertiary care hospital and also the risk of getting infection. It is also helpful in training the care providers of the sick and disabled children and elders. These are the benefits of the telemedicine. Rules and regulation. In India, till now, there was no legislation or guidelines on the practice of the telemedicine. But last year, with this COVID-19 pandemic, the government of India has also realized the importance of the telemedicine, and that's why the Board of Governance of the Medical Council of India has adopted telemedicine practice guidelines on 25th March 2020. What are these guidelines? In these guidelines, they have given the elements of the telemedicine, that is contents. Contents should be appropriate and adequate. Identification of RMP and patient, it can be identified the name, email address, and the proper address. Which mode of communication they are going to use during this telemedicine, either it is audio, video, text, etc. Then consent. Consent is a very important part. And the implied consent is there when the patient initiates the telemedicine chat. And it is explicit when RMP initiates. And for the RMP initiation of the consent, proper consent is required. And consent may be taken by in a text, by email, or by message, or by audio, or by video. But the record of the consent must be maintained. And that's the important thing in a telemedicine. The type of consultation, either it is first or follow, they have defined which is the first. First means first time they visited, or the patient has consulted you 6 months before. So, or he has consulted within 6 months, but now he is facing another problem. These are comes under the first consultation. In a follow-up consultation, that the more than within 6 months, if the consultation is there. Then the sixth point is the patient evaluation. So on a telemedicine, collect all the information, because on a telemedicine it is impossible to touch the patient. So collect all the information before you are making the judgment. Last is and most important, patient management. After collecting all information, you come in the diagnosis. After the diagnosis, you have to give the treatment. And if you think that the treatment is possible via telemedicine, then only you can prescribe or give the e-prescription. If you are not confident about it, then you can advise that patient, please consult the doctor, or face-to-face interaction should be there. So that's the important point. If the judgment is made and he is confident that the treatment can be given via telemedicine, then only give the treatment. The fee for telemedicine consult can be charged and a receipt or invoice may be given to the patient. There are special restrictions are there. Which drug should be used? List O drug safe to prescribe through any mode of the teleconsultation. List A drug relatively safe medication which can be prescribed during the first and are being re-prescribed for refill in case of follow-up. These are the lists given. And list B drugs are the medication which RMP can have given during his face-to-face consultation or in-person consultation. And if he thinks that that drug is required, that the RMP can prescribe that. And prohibited list. Don't give the drugs which come under the Schedule X of Drug and Cosmetic Act and Rules, or the narcotic and psychotropic substance listed in a narcotic drugs and psychotropic substance. So these specific restrictions must be followed in a telemedicine practice. And most important, you have to maintain the digital documentation of the consultation. What are the critical issues? So there are different critical issues, that misinterpretation of information. And the instances has been happened in the past that the doctor has told take a chloramphenicol and patient has taken chloroquine. So there is miscommunication that should not be happen. Second is maintaining the privacy and confidentiality of a telemedicine services, and it's the crucial point and most sensitive point. Why? Because while you are concerned, there is consultation. You also ask some personal question to the patient, and there is third party is also there because all these are the technology is there, and third party platform is there. So maintaining privacy and confidentiality is a bigger issue in a telemedicine practice. Also, protection of information and computer system from a cyber attack, because you have to maintain all these documents, e-documents. So there is chances of the cyber attack. Then further installment of a telemedicine at your clinic, you will clear. You have to high-speed internet connection, clinical telemedicine card, and patient access software. And also, you have to do the training of all stakeholders, like from a doctor or paramedical staff or that of the patient, and then only this telemedicine will be success, will be much more quality. I give my example, practical example, that I am also doing my sonography practice at a rural level. And previously, when I issued the report to the patient has to go again to the doctor, show the report and take the treatment. But nowadays, what happens? These rural people are not so educated, but still they take a photograph of this. This photograph is again they send to their referral doctor. Referral doctor sees that USG report and give the treatment. So more or less, this telemedicine practice is also accepted and adapted at a rural level. It may be a baby step towards the telemedicine. But what I want to convey that telemedicine practice is also started at a rural level. Now I'm coming to the third part, that is artificial intelligence, or called AI. So it is the technical part, and technology is always help in a healthcare system. So what is the meaning of artificial intelligence? According to Oxford English Dictionary, AI is the theory and development of computer system able to perform tasks normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages. Another definition given by Wikipedia is artificial intelligence is demonstrated by machines in contrast to the natural intelligence displayed by human and other animals. In short, AI is a special ability of the computers, and they has to do work as a human being. So that's the, in a simple language, what is the artificial intelligence. And in COVID-19 pandemic, this artificial intelligence has helped in all the aspects. Before going to the specific point, what are the artificial intelligence applications are there which are used in a healthcare? For diagnosis assistant, IBM Watson, ADA, URMD, DeepMind Health, Face2Gene, Botkin, these are the different appliances used for a diagnostic assistant. For management of healthcare enterprises, Quintus is the artificial intelligence application which is used for the infrastructure at a ICU or at a casualty, dealing the problems at a casualty. And also for keeping healthy lifestyle, planning and training, this cardio, get in shape, gym fitty, these are the smart watches or the gadgets which can be wearable, and with this they give the information about the wellness, fitness, also the workout you have done, how many calories you have spent. All these come under the AI system which are in healthcare. It also can be classified collecting by data by sensor, by cardio or gene PT, or collecting data by inquiries by Get in Shape, ADA, URMD, etc. And artificial intelligence work on a three basic this, that is machine learning, machine learning is useful in healthcare in predicting that that person can get a particular disease or not. Neural network is much more complex than a machine learning and helpful in predicting the which treatment is suitable for that patient. And deep learning is the again complex part of a artificial intelligence, and it is used in a detecting the cancerous lesion on a radiological images, and it has given that the diagnosis given by the AI system is much more accurate than the human being, and there is no need to do the histopathological examination. Now, the specific that AI in contact tracing of the COVID. AI can augment mobile health application where smartphone devices like watches, mobile phones, cameras, and range of wearable devices can employed for diagnosis, contact tracing, and efficient monitoring of COVID-19. And you all know that government has requested all of us to install Arogya Setu app in our mobile to for the contact tracing, as well as there is another app known as Go Corona Go app that is also used. So AI is helpful in a contact tracing. Another that AI is also helpful in prediction and tracking. Extracting information from social media platforms, calls and news sites, and provide useful information about the vulnerable regions and prediction of morbidity and mortality. One of the AI application that Blue Dot identified a cluster of pneumonia cases and predicted the outbreak and geographical location of COVID-19 outbreak based on available data using machine learning. And you all know that the second wave was predicted. Now we are going to through the second wave, and I also request that pray the God that there no third wave should be there, and AI also give a prediction that the third wave will be not there. Then AI is also useful in detecting mask violators. So the Telangana Police Department has come up with installing a software in the CCTV camera to identify the mask violator. After identifying the mask violator, they send a notification to police headquarters, and which in turn send that update to the patrolling police team. So with this, they catch up the mask violator and try to that give the punishment so that other person can wear the mask when they come in a public area. So also artificial intelligence is helpful in early diagnosis. Researchers have developed deep learning model called COVID-19 detection neural network, that is CONET, for differentiating the pneumonia which is caused by COVID-19 or pneumonia caused by the another condition based on a 2D and 3D feature extracted from the chest CT scan. There are another AI application like COVID RaceNet, COVID EmptyNet, and our Indian AI application, Tata Consultancy Services with QR AI has also developed one AI application which differentiate on a X-ray, they differentiate that patch is of a COVID pneumatic patch or it is of another pneumatic patch. So AI also helpful in a early diagnosis. Also, artificial intelligence is helpful in a burden reduction of a burden from a medical practitioner and healthcare staff. AI can be used for the classification of the patient in a mild, moderate, and severe cases. AI-based medical chatbots can also be used for the consultation, also telemedicine. I have already elaborated on a telemedicine. The important thing now, the service robots can be used for the delivery of essential service like the food or sanitizing, or also that of the drugs also can be delivered through the robot. Also, robots also are used for cleaning, disinfecting, and monitoring in the hospital setting. This picture is also from a hospital from the Chennai. Artificial intelligence also helps in the development of the therapeutics. So, Madam Shivsagar Madam has already told for the development of a new drug, it has to go through the clinical trials, and there are different clinical starting from the 0 up to 3 phases. and AI has helped in a development of a new drug. Benevolent AI used machine learning method to accelerate its drug discovery program and identify batricitinib as a potential drug against the COVID-19. Another researcher, Joe et al., adopted an integrative network-based system pharmacological methodology for finding potential drugs for SARS-CoV-2. Also, Tata Consultancy with Indraprasth Institute of the Technology, Delhi, also has developed one AI application for the use of or discovering the new drug which is effective against the COVID-19. AI also helped in the development of the vaccine. Never before has mankind witnessed such a race for the development of the vaccine against this pathogen. The pace of discovery can be accelerated manifold by the power of AI. Now, this Covishield as well as Covaxin, also these people are also use AI system for the clinical trials about the vaccines. Then, artificial intelligence also helpful in restriction the spread of the misinformation. Whenever we watch the television or read the newspaper, you get all the COVID-19 news, and there is a fear in the mind. So AI machine learning techniques can be used to identify the origin of false information and help in curtailing the rumors and misinformation. AI also can provide the latest update about the diagnosis, treatment, spectrum of the symptoms, and therapeutic outcomes. In our country, ICMR website is doing that job, and daily they are updating us about the diagnosis, treatment, spectrum of the symptom, etc. Also, Government of India Health and Family Welfare Department also time to time releasing the news latest update about the diagnosis, treatment, and the symptoms. So critical issues related to the artificial intelligence. So what happened? I read one article in from the Lancet, which is published in January 2021, that this AI application has been developed, but they are not gone through the quality process, and in a hurry the government has authorized them. So Gary Collins, professor of medical statistics at the University of Oxford, he told the Lancet Digital Health that full and transparent reporting of all the key factor development and evaluation of a prediction models for COVID-19 is vital. Failure to report important details not only contribute to the research waste, but more importantly can lead to poorly developed and evaluated model being used that can cause more harm than benefit in clinical decision making. So these I have taken the full sentence from that Lancet, and you can see you can have a look that this AI system, although they help, but they have not gone through the quality control. Again, privacy and information safety, again, cyber attack issues are there. That I am told that the cancer lesions can be diagnosed much more accurately than that of the human being. But if the mistake has made, then who is going to or who is accountable for that? That's the big question. Again, that the data is given to the AI application, and AI application has given a diagnosis like a cancer. But the patient one, why, on what basis you are given this diagnosis? And it's very difficult to explain these algorithms. And on that algorithm, this artificial intelligence is based. It's very difficult. Then who will answer the queries of the patient related to the AI given diagnosis and the treatment? That is another issue. And there is the fear in the mind of the medical practitioner that the job loss. If this AI system will get improved, they may get the clinical practice may get replaced by the artificial intelligence. But no, not at all this going to happen, because it is because we are dealing with the human being. There are empathetic part, emotional part is there, but there is fear to them who will not acclimatize themselves to the new technology. That people have a fear of a job loss. These are the critical issues related to the artificial intelligence. Last, my conclusion that though the virtual teaching is there, traditional teaching, if we use both of them, then that will be the much more helpful to the student as well as the teacher, and it is called as the blended teaching. Telemedicine, same thing, cannot the answer of all the problems. And also with the telemedicine, you can do the surgery and all these things. But telemedicine has helped us in this COVID-19 pandemic, and you all must have experienced this importance of the telemedicine in this COVID-19 pandemic. AI was also found to be on par and even more accurate than a human expert in COVID-19 diagnosis and drug discovery. We need bigger database for training AI models. Also, there must be legal framework, ethical consideration for sharing the data before AI takes the forefront in a diagnosis on other areas. Some contribution as made by me, that I have made one forensic medicine museum, digital museum, and it's India's first museum, and patent. I also patent is published in a patent journal. Student can visit afterwards, and it has made in the last year lockdown period. And second, there is my YouTube channel is also, and in that not only forensic medicine lectures are there. There are the lectures related to the motivation, related to the research, related to the medical education technology. Afterwards, student can visit it. These are my references. And again, I am very thankful to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Nitin Karmalkar sir, Registrar, Dr. K.D. Chavan sir, and my friend, Dr. Ravindra Devkar sir, giving me the opportunity to deliver session on such a complicated topic, that is the digitalization and artificial intelligence in a COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As you said, it was a very complicated topic, but you have made it extremely easy for all of us to understand by highlighting various aspects of telemedicine and artificial intelligence, which is so relevant, especially today. Thank you so much, sir. It was a fantastic session. And I would ask Dr. Kadam, sir, to please share what he thinks.
Thank you, madam.
Yes, I really appreciate the session, and this was really a fantastic session. It started from definition, and Dr. Sandeep Kodu took us to a practical application and how we are going or selling through this COVID-19. The online lectures have become the standard of care like thing, and even we are taking examinations also on online. Now in the COVID area, they have started tele-ICUs. So patient is in ICU, which is manned by the MBBS doctors or BMHS or BMS doctors, and the consultant is sitting somewhere else, will guide them to manage. And this has come to salvage and give relief from manpower shortages. So many other telemedicine and teleconsultation related solutions are in pipeline regarding this COVID-19. Thank you very much for that excellent session, sir. And I also thank our Vice Chancellor, Karmakar sir, our Registrar, K.D. Chavan sir, Devkar sir, Lomte madam, and all others who gave me opportunity to sit over here as moderator. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Shubhangi Parkar madam is also with us again. Ma'am, if you would please want to speak a few words on the session.
Yes, I think it was really simplified. Dr. Kadu has done that issues, and some critical elements which he brought in was in the patient management, when face-to-face interaction. You know, he spoke about Schedule X drug, which is a very important perspective many people do not know, and critical issues like misinterpretation of information, privacy, protection of information. You know, these are some of the, I think it was very, I mean, I personally found it a very nice presentation and very sensitizing presentation. So thank you so much, Kadu sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yes.